English classes done or fulfilled. There's a harmonic part.
Yeah.
It'll be a little short because we have to get ready to go still. Tata Uchai Shravanama Ayo Buchandra Pandura Tasmin Bali Sprihan Chakre Nendra Ishvara Shikshaya Tata Ucha Shravanama Ayo Buchandra Pandura Tasmin Balim Spriham Chakre Nendra Ishvara Shikshaya. Translation is, thereafter a horse named Uchashwara, which was as white as the moon, was generated. Bali Maharaj desired to possess this horse, and Indra, the king of heaven, did not protest, for he had previously been so advised by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The myth continues. Text 4. As the next result of the journey, the king of elephants, named Bhāgavatam, was generated. This elephant was white, and with its 4 tusks, it defied the glories of Kailash mountain, the glorious abode of Lord Shiva. Thereafter, O king, 8 great elephants, which could go in any direction, were generated. They were headed by Ravana. 8 tree elephants, headed by Abhramu, were also generated. The names of these 8 elephants were Airavana, Pundarika, Vamana, Kumuda, Anjana, Pushpadanta, Sarvatoma, and Supratika. Here's Supratika. Generated thereafter from the great ocean were the celebrated gems Kaustubhamani and Padmaragamani. Lord Vishnu, to decorate his chest, desired to possess them. Generated next was the Parijata flower, which decorates the celestial planets. O king, as you fulfill the desires of everyone on this planet by fulfilling all ambitions, the Parijata fulfills the desires of everyone. Next, there appeared the Apsaras, who are used as prostitutes on the heavenly planets. They were fully decorated with golden ornaments and lockets, and were dressed in fine and attractive clothing. The Apsaras moved very slowly in an attractive style that bewilders the inhabitants of the heavenly planets. Then there appeared the goddess of fortune, Rama, who is absolutely dedicated to being enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She appeared like electricity, surpassing the lightning that might illuminate a marble mountain. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shri means opulence. Krishna is the owner of all opulences. Bhaktaram Nivakasam Sarvalokanayeshwaram Suidam Sarvabhutanam Gatvam Shantim Richati. This peace formula for the world is given in Bhagavad Gita. When people know that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, supreme proprietor, and most intimate well-wishing friend of all living entities, peace and prosperity will ensue all over the world. Unfortunately, the conditioned souls, being placed into illusion by the external energy of the Lord, want to fight with one another, and therefore peace is disturbed. The first prerequisite for peace is that all the wealth presented by Shri, the goddess of fortune, be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone should give up his false proprietorship over worldly possessions and offer everything to Krishna. This is the teaching of the Krishna consciousness movement. Om Gyan Timrandasya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So there were different products from the churning of the ocean, and the last manifestation was the goddess of fortune. And the fur, then you're going to read quite a bit of detail. One thing that's common to all of these things that should be noted is that the ocean of milk is a material substance, whatever kind of milk it is, and it doesn't give birth to anything or anyone. We started off with Surabi, with the cows. So this is a essential principle that Srila Prabhupada went to great pains to emphasize, and he even had Swarup Damodar Maharaj write a book on life comes from matter. So it is not that matter comes from life, as appears to be here, that all you have to do is just churn some milk and all of a sudden you get cows and goddesses of fortune and so many things. So that's not the case, and that's not possible. Nonetheless, therefore the conclusion has to be that the churning is simply an indirect way for all of these living entities, some of which are eternal associates, for instance like the goddess of fortune or Kaustubha jewel, for them to actually appear and manifest. So this is called Gona Lakshana. When the Tatastha, when the immediate, the Swarup, when the immediate explanation of something is not consistent with a greater philosophical understanding, then you can look for another answer. So this word interpretation is an English word. It means you interpret something, but things don't require interpretation when they're self-evident. Here, the self-evident thing would look like milk gives birth to all kinds of creatures. But that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with our Siddhanta, and it doesn't fit with practical experience. So therefore, we must conclude that no, this is just an appearance, this is just some kind of apparent explanation, but actually there's something deeper behind it. And where and why these living entities or things, although they're all living entities, even the Kaustubha jewel is a living entity, why they're appearing, that we don't read of. Or at least it's not here in the Bhāgavatam verses or in the text. Why do these things appear and not other things appear? In a way, there's a cause or a story behind everything. It's not considered to be that relevant. But what is relevant is that it's very clear in the minds of devotees that Surabi wasn't born from milk, that Airavata is not born from milk, that Uchashrava is not born from milk, Goddess of Fortune is not born from milk. They appeared through that particular medium, just like Krishna is never born. Janma karma chami divya. It appeared that Krishna took birth from Devaki's womb, from Radha Yashoda's womb, but that's not the case. Krishna is eternal. Similarly, it appears that even a living entity takes birth from a combination of a man and a woman, and that they appear from the womb, but no, they also have a previous history. So materialistic people will see things from one point of view, but spiritualists or transcendentalists, they will have another kind of perspective. Now there are some of these, the history of some of these entities who appear may be described in Upanishads, and usually you will have some explanation somewhere else about something that's mentioned here. What is the actual ontology of this Uchashrava horse? In any case, we see that this was Bali Maharaj who took the horse. Interestingly here, although I don't know if it's the same, there are one of the 8 elephants who, these are the male elephants. This is aside from Bhāgavatam, who has 4 tusks. One of the 8 elephants is called Suplatika. Now Shalva had. There was one in the battle of Kurukshetra. There was a Suplatika elephant. I don't know whether it's the same elephant, but that you would have to track down whether there's any mention in Mahabharata. And that was elephant would trample over all elephants and everybody else, and but ultimately either Arjuna or Bhima killed him. I can't remember. No one remembers. Supratika is there. Shalya, not Salva, Shalya. So there are many examples and I'll give one or two, in Shastra, where it appears that either some eternal paraphernalia of the Lord appears or is given by some non-eternal or person who's in a non-eternal position or post of authority. For instance, Agni gives Krishna the Sudarshan chakra. So fire god Agni is in a temporary position of authority as a demigod, and yet Krishna's Sudarshan chakra, which is actually Krishna's eternal weapon, seems to be given by a lower entity. So it's the same example as here, that this is part of Krishna's Leela, or part of Krishna's pastime. Just like Sandipani Muni blesses Krishna, that whatever you speak, that will never be forgotten and will be repeated for time immemorial. But that's already understood, because Krishna is saying, Imam Vivashvate Yomam, yes, I spoke this millions of years ago, and Bhagavad Gita doesn't depend on Sandipani Muni's blessings. But still, because on one side, Krishna has a Nara-lila, where he's playing a role in which he appears to be dependent on these type of blessings, and in the other, it's a deception for materialistic people that they can always give some kind of mundane answer for something that's actually transcendental or something is spiritual, like that Krishna leaves a material body behind when he leaves the world. And people can say, well, there it is. How could it be a spiritual or transcendental personality? So life comes from life. Life does not come from matter. And these living entities or creatures don't immediately come from the ocean of milk, but rather they have some other source. And very significantly here is the appearance of the goddess of fortune, Rama, which is another, as I mentioned yesterday, pronunciation. We're have also a god sister who has that same name, but everyone calls her Rama Devi, which is something else. That's not Rama Devi. So she is Krishna's eternal associate, although there are different goddesses of fortune. There are material goddesses of fortune within this material world who are partial expansions of the original goddess of fortune, and that same goddess of fortune expands herself to different degrees and different forms and different living entities. For instance, the goddess of fortune, who's an expansion self of Srimati Radharani, and Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that the gopis are Kaya Vyuha, they are the manifestation of Krishna's Srimati Radharani's body, and the goddesses of fortune are a different type of expansion. There are, for instance, three for instance, successive incarnations of the goddess of fortune. One is Vedavati, another one is Sita, and the third one in that sequence, I can't remember. Vedavati was an ascetic, an example of a woman who becomes a yogini, goes off to the Himalayas, and when he was flying around, Ravana saw her, and he tried to seduce her. She cursed him, and that she would become the cause of his destruction, and then she immolated herself, she burnt herself to ashes. And then she took birth as next incarnation was Sita. And of course Sita was the cause of Ravana's destruction. But there are two Sitas. One Sita is actually the internal potency of Lord Ramachandra, and the other Sita was that when, prior to Ravana kidnapping Sita, then Agni came to Lord Ramachandra and told him that this is what's going to happen, so actually I should take Sita with me, and I will manifest a Chaya Sita, a false Sita, or a shadow of the real Sita, and who's a partial manifestation of Sita Devi. And so when Ravana came, then actually that was that Sita that he stole, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed the evidence for this from the Kurma Purana to this Brahmin in South India who was lamenting about how could Sita Devi be touched by Ravana. Anyway, but he wasn't. And then when the war was over with Ravan, then Sita did this trial by fire, and the Chaya Sita, the false Sita, went into the fire, and the real Sita came out, and the other Sita came out. They both came out. So of course Lord Ramachandra took the real Sita, and what was the other Sita going to do? So Lord Ramachandra told her, you go and you do tapasya, and later you'll appear again when I appear. So when she appeared as from Maharaj Drupada. When Drupada was doing his fire sacrifice, she came out of the fire sacrifice as Draupadi. And so that's why you read that Draupadi is a empowered incarnation of Lakshmi Devi. And of course, she couldn't marry Krishna, but she became the wife of the Pandavas. So there are different expansions, different forms of the Lord, and but all of them are satya, all of them are real. And here the point was that sometimes it appears that some of these forms, paraphernalia, weapons, they appear in some transient or from a conditioned soul, living entity, Agni gifting something to Lord Krishna, but that's part of Krishna's Leela. And then we should just accept things like that, and if we actually want to understand further, then it may be possible to track down that kind of information by searching through Vedic literature. So tomorrow and the following verses are all about the Abhishek and the beautiful features of Goddess of Fortune, and we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Shri Siddhartha Jai Gauranga ki Jai Nitai Gaur Prema